Big news today in Florida.
Yeah.
Not
Florida.
weird news, good news.
Good news. I mean, really historic news. Now they got to enforce it and they got to do what they say. But man, is it a dramatic step in the right direction?
Exactly, in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we're not known for that here in
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah,
Everyone goes right, we go left.
that's exactly right. Well, at least we're not Texas, as we're going to tell you.
God,
Right?
what a story on that. All right, let's do this.
Well, Queer News Tonight comes on the air this evening to report that today, in a victory for LGBTQ Floridians, the agency that enforces state civil rights law has affirmed that discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations based on sexual orientation and gender identity is now illegal. The Florida Commission on Human Relations, FCHR, has issued a notice formally announcing its intent to fully implement the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Bostock versus Clayton County and investigate claims of anti-LGBTQ discrimination. We believe Florida is the first state in the Deep South to enact such a sweeping anti-discrimination policy at the state level.
Nadine Smith, Executive Director of Equality Florida, has said this evening, quote, "This is a huge win and cause for celebration statewide. Any LGBTQ person anywhere in Florida who experiences discrimination now has a path to pursue justice. The U.S. Supreme Court declared that discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is illegal, and the agency that enforces civil rights protections for all Floridians has made it clear they will follow the law of the land," end quote. The FCHR decision comes in the wake of the landmark Supreme Court decision in June that held discrimination on the basis of sex is exclusive of discrimination based on a person's sexual orientation and gender identity.
This ruling is the basis of President Biden's historic extensions by executive order to extend these protections for LGBTQ persons into all aspects of our lives. Commissioner Monica Cipro, who made the motion to affirm the Bostock ruling, praised her colleagues for clarifying fundamental protections for the LGBTQ community. In a first for over 800,000 LGBTQ Floridians, the decision provides those who experience discrimination an official state channel through which to file a claim and affords them the full protection of Florida's civil rights laws.
Amen to that. Let's throw a party, people. We should be doing happy dances all around. I mean, long time coming, Florida. This is a very happy day. What a triumph for everybody under the LGBTQ plus umbrella today.
Definitely a big win. I cannot agree more.
You know, when Nadine, my friend, Nadine Smith, does a little happy dance in social media, it's a big deal because Nadine Smith rarely does big happy dances.
True.
This is a start. It's a commitment. It's not going to happen universally. We're Florida after all, and Governor DeSantis is governor after all. But this is a gigantic step and gigantic news for the state of Florida. So welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, February 3rd, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. The world's first live daily queer evening news show. Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is a live, unedited LGBTQ evening news show. So whatever happens, you're going to see it tonight. Whatever these people say, you're going to see it also. We bring you the news and a perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our world. I'm your Queer News Tonight anchor, Al Ferguson, and tonight, let's welcome anchor Faye. What? She's out, she's proud, and you know, as I always say, she's most certainly loud. She's a Latina to be reckoned with, half Puerto Rican, half Colombian, 100% freaking Jersey. She's a radio personality and has the popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G in LGBTQ called Faye. What? She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, a board member of Unity Coalition, and also an animal advocate dedicated to providing excellent service to your pets as the owner of Faye's Fur Family. And also, she's the new host of the LGBTQ travel show, happeningout.travel. Good evening, Faye.
Hola, mi gente. So happy to be here. Good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, exciting.
And good morning.
Let's welcome John Buckley. He is a client advisor at Ramoa, Vice President and Program Director of the nonprofit organization Unity Coalition, as well as the creator of the initiative Kioba, a free traveling social event that features inspiring speakers, topics, and a safe space for all same-gender loving men of color. Plus, he is also known as Buck Lords, I love that, from the famous House of Lords. Good evening, John.
Thank you, Al.
All right, well, tonight we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, February 3rd. We begin by queering up breaking queer news. To hell with the news of the day. COVID-19, impeachment, it's all enough. Breaking news tonight is about pandas and the snow. The Smithsonian National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute has released an adorable video of giant pandas, Mi Zhang and Tintin, sliding and rolling in the snow in their habitat in Washington, D.C.
It reminded all of us at Queer News Tonight what is really important in the world. 4 years, 4 long years, a 2020 unlike any in memory, Donald Trump, full stop. Okay, COVID-19 and the collapse of our LGBTQ lives.
So when we saw two pandas taking the opportunity to slide and play in the snow, they reminded the entire LGBTQ community what makes us so special. Play, fun, entertainment. Thanks for the reminder.
Oh, this is the cutest thing ever. I love this video. When I saw initially that it was pandas in the snow, first I thought it was an OnlyFans thing. And then I thought it was this other video that I saw of this guy up north that was plowing the snow and he had a panda hat on, you know? Either one is good, you know? I love this. I love to watch snow on TV. I'm from New York and New Jersey. I'm too old to shovel any kind of snow these days, but it looks beautiful on screen.
Yeah.
So I've never actually been in snow. I've only seen it and watched it, correct.
So cracker Florida boy.
Yeah, you know, hopefully one day I'll get to do the same thing that they're doing.
Yeah. Down the hill, on your
Rolling.
back or on your stomach?
Sometimes on my back, sometimes rolling, who knows, whichever the way the wind blows.
Buck wants to roll around in the snow with a bear. We can do that.
I love that. We're opening Queer News Tonight with our breaking Q news of nothing to do with politics or COVID or LGBT discrimination. We've opened with panda bears. I think that's fantastic.
Loving it. Next, let's queer up education. Headmaster comes out to student, faculty, and virtual assembly. Watch this.
To know that this week is LGBTQ plus week at the college, and that these days St Dunstan's is a place where being gay or having any form of different sexual identity does not carry with it the same stigma, the need for such attention, the need for controversy. And of course, this place, this school, has moved on to such an extent that I, as the headmaster, can be comfortable to share with you today that I am happily gay and in a same-sex relationship.
What a great story. At Queer News Tonight, we have told so many coming out stories. This one is unique. A headmaster at an exclusive private school in the UK is believed to have made history this week when he came out to students and faculty at the start of the school's LGBTQ week. Nicholas Hewitt made the revelation to his students at St Dunstan's College in Catford, southeast London, during a virtual assembly Monday. According to the Times, Hewlett said after the reveal, quote, "My only regret is not doing it earlier, because 7 years of children will have gone through the school without the benefit of a role model. 15 years ago, I was told by a senior colleague in the independent school I was then working in that an openly gay man, it would it would be impossible for me to become a Headmaster, end quote. The 41-year-old Hewlett, who has been happily married to Alberic Elson, the director of music at the Whitgift School in Croydon, since 2014, received messages of support from students, parents, and the faculty, and a very positive community response.
I think that's an amazing thing. You know, oh well, you took that long to come into your truth, but congrats on doing that and living your life much easier without that burden on your back and setting the example for those to come.
And equally a balance is not only for him to do this, but how his students and faculty and entire community responded. He received overwhelmingly positive response from the school itself, faculty and staff, but also the community, because the college actually, or the private school, it's not a college, the private school actually shared this video and then received tremendous response from the community itself.
And to that idiot that told him years ago that it was impossible for him to ever become headmaster, there you go, you see? And I love the fact that his husband is a music teacher. How perfect is that, right? Isn't that like a Glee episode or something? I don't know.
Right.
And now we queer up LGBTQ activists. Black History Month. For the first time ever, 3 national LGBTQ organizations have black leaders. For the first time ever, 3 LGBTQ orgs have black leaders. February is Black History Month, and we are celebrating the LGBTQ community, but not exactly in the way you may first think. The election of Kamala Harris as the first female Black South Asian vice president was a joyous and noteworthy event. Indeed, the Biden administration has already shown itself to be the opposite of the blatant racism of the previous 4 years. New leadership demands new ways of operating, new ways of governing, and new ways to confront systematic racism. Our own community that has only recently begun to address bigotry within our ranks, and that includes Black executive leadership in the LGBTQ movement. For the first time in history, 3 of the national legacy LGBTQ equality organizations, National LGBTQ Task Force, Human Rights Campaign, and National Center for Lesbian Rights, will be led by Black executive directors. This has been a demand from LGBTQ activists of color for decades, and is the result of a lot of hard work that included protests, marching, and intention bench building within and across social justice movements in the country. With fixing racial issues a major priority for Biden-Harris administration and a continuing patchwork of civil rights laws across our country, their leadership of these organizations come at an opportune time. This was the focus of the first panel discussion at this week's National LGBTQ Task Force Creating Change conference, which features several Black LGBTQ leaders, including Kiara Johnson of the National LGBTQ Task Force, Alfonso David of the Human Rights Campaign, and Amani Rupert Gordon of the National Center for Lesbian Rights. The session was moderated by the National Black Justice Coalition's Executive Director, David J. Johns. What stuck out during some very honest and profound remarks was how our own attitudes have shaped our ideas about Black executives and leaders in the LGBTQ movement. The very thought of these individuals are first is at once alarming and embarrassing. Why have we, as a generally open-minded community, been so lax in installing Black leadership? A gigantic new and first step in the LGBT community has been achieved.
You know, it's an interesting story. First off, I'm very happy, John, that you get to tell this story. This is a historic moment that happened. I watched this conference session with these 3 leaders. One of the things that I came away with is I watched the session and I thought to myself, being considered pretty active in the LGBTQ community over the last 30 or 40 years, I was surprised that it never dawned on me that the leadership organizations in America were generally not led by people of color. And the fact that I hadn't thought of that, I realized, well, I'm not propelling and helping to push this along. So tonight at Queer News Tonight, we bring note of this very, very significant achievement.
You know, kudos to all 3 organizations for opening that door, but I hope that in the future we won't have to tell stories like this because it won't be a thing. You know, that's what my heart says right now. So again, kudos to all three organizations for stepping up and showing up and suiting up.
At the same time, you know, I don't think it was intentional, but like you both have brought to light, sometimes these are things that we never think about and we never realize until it's pointed out. I'm blessed to be a part of Unity Coalition, not to rant about them, but being a part of that organization, we've had people of many colors, many shapes, many sizes, and places of leadership for years that we've been around. And that's one of the things that I valued most when I became a part of them. I saw a clear picture of many different individuals and representations all around.
You know, it's completely, by the way, one last note, it's completely by accident, but I love the picture that we're looking at right now. It's a complete representation of diversity in our community.
Aw,
It
it
is just
is.
3 people. It is a representation of that. Next, let's queer up politics. Here are the 13 senators who voted against confirming Pete Buttigieg. How come? This week, history was made when Pete Buttigieg became the first out gay cabinet member to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate after he was approved as the nation's 19th U.S. Secretary of Transportation. We did that as breaking news this week in the congratulations of that event. Buttigieg's confirmation makes him the first openly LGBTQ person to serve in a Senate-approved cabinet position, as well as the youngest secretary to ever head the department. And it's the highest position ever in the U.S. government for an LGBTQ representation. He was confirmed by an overwhelming vote of 86 to 13, with one senator, Patrick Toomey from Pennsylvania, not voting. Let's take another moment to pause to celebrate that historic achievement. Now, let's take just another moment to focus on the unlucky 13. 13 Republicans that said no. They included both Florida senators, by the way, Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. Queer News Tonight began to wonder why. Could it be politics? Was it party affiliation? Was he too liberal? Well, most of these senators have already or will vote yes on other cabinet appointments that meet those exact same standards. Take a moment more and we can see why. He's gay, and they represent the same point of view. They are mostly conservative Southerners. Tennessee, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, South Carolina, Alabama, and Florida. These states failed the HRC equality test, have the worst LGBTQ rights position of the states of America, and in fact, do not reflect even the opinion of most of the residents of their own states. Queer News Tonight has reported that a full 83% of Americans support, for example, President Biden's early efforts on expanded equality protections. So it helps us understand why the 13. Because homophobia still runs deep in the Deep South, at least in the Republican political leadership.
True that. Totally true that. I'm like, okay, why? Okay, yeah, they're Republican. I get it. Marco Rubio, Miss Trump is coming after you, by the way. I figured you were going to vote no. I got that. Okay. Scott, I figured that too, because you're all homophobic. That's the bottom line. And I thought I finally got to say Mayor Buttigieg correctly, but now I know I said it wrong again.
Right?
They were haters from the beginning, and that's the way it's going to stay.
You know, and the best way to deal with haters is on Queer News Tonight, report this story and show a video of Mayor Pete, now Cabinet Secretary Pete, and his husband kissing on stage. It's the best revenge.
Next, we queer up the world. Australian LGBTQ skydivers come together with pride in a festival first. Over 80 skydivers came together this week to take part in Australia's first LGBTQ skydiving festival called Pride Bougie. Australia has largely kept its coronavirus pandemic under control in recent months and is not subjected to the same sort of restrictions as those in countries such as the US and UK. It therefore allows certain public gatherings to take place. Pride Bougie took place in Moruya, on the coast of New South Wales, a 4-hour drive from Sydney. Pride Bougie was the idea of Marcus Berger, a former chairman of the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. Bouger said, quote, "Pride Bougie is Mardi Gras for LGBTQIA plus adrenaline junkies. Jumping out of planes at 15,000 feet makes equals of all of us and can be seen by how many straight people came together to celebrate the weekend with their queer brothers and sisters. Australian skydiving is a sport for everyone, so get involved and see what the stoke is all about," end quote. Everyone at Queer News Tonight loves our LGBTQ cousins from OZ.
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 All right, so are we gonna strap up and jump out the plane?
Hell to the no.
You know, actually,
Why?
in the last couple of years, I went down to Key West to Sugarloaf and jumped out of a plane. And it was one of the great experiences of my life. Mostly, not only because of the spectacular views, but because I had this big Arkansas boy on my back in the tandem jump that I did. So I completely understood this story. And if you did it with 50 or 100 other LGBT people to celebrate Pride, how special and spectacular would it be? Right.
Well, and I've gone skydiving. I was slightly drunk at the time, and I had a guy attached to my ass. But by what I remember, it wasn't that much fun.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah, I've got so much to say. No.
And now we queer up the USA. Hey, Austin and Dallas, did you know new reports say Texas is the worst in America for LGBTQ? Austin and Dallas has one of the most vibrant LGBTQ metro communities in America, but they live in a place that is not so LGBTQ friendly. The Human Rights Campaign's State Equality Index for 2020 ranks Texas as one of the worst states in the country for LGBTQ people. The recently released annual index measures the rights and protections each state has in place for LGBTQ individuals. Texas is ranked in the bottom category and referred to as high priority to achieve basic equality. Ricardo Martinez, the CEO of Equality Texas, said, in quote, "Texas has a way to go to secure basic equality for LGBTQ plus people. Although 70% of Texans believe that discrimination against LGBTQ plus people is wrong, many are not aware that their LGBTQ plus neighbors can be refused housing or denied public accommodations simply because of who we are," end quote. HRC reports Texas is in the LGBTQ cellar because it is lacking statewide protections in housing, unemployment, public accommodations, school anti-bullying policies, education, and access to trans health care. There's also no laws that facilitate a gender marker update on driver's license or birth certificates, or ban conversion therapy or hate crimes targeting sexual orientation or gender identity. Texas currently has laws that permit discrimination in adoption and foster placement, restrict inclusion of LGBTQ topics in schools, and exclude trans health care from being covered by the state Medicaid program. The state still has anti-sodomy law on its books, even though enforcing such laws have been declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Oh, and they own Senator Ted Cruz.
Yeah, boy, that last sentence says it all. Texas, I just have to say to you, your closest LGBT cousins are right here in Florida. So I would suggest to you our breaking news today in terms of what the Human Rights Commission in Florida has done in following the Supreme Court lead. That can come to Texas also. And also, is it only me, but when I was in the pre-meeting of hearing the stories for today that we were going to be reporting at Queer News Tonight, I first thought that Austin and Dallas were some guys that were dating each other in Texas. Was it just me?
It was just you. It was just you. You know, everything is big in Texas except for the support of the LGBTQ community.
Exactly.
You know, and I was doing some research on this story, and gayborhood.com said that they were ranked 8th in gay friendly. So I'm so super surprised that they don't take care of their own people, but we're allowed to go visit there. You know, I had this syndicated radio show for a while, and the headquarters was in Dallas, so I had to be in Dallas for about 6 months. And so of course I had to go find the gayborhood, and there's this area called Oak Lawn in Dallas. It's like 3 blocks long. That's it. If you go anywhere outside of that, I don't know. Take your horse and gun with you. I don't know.
Texas, you and your cousins here in Florida can kick rocks with an open toe shoe.
Texas, we love you. We just would like to love you more.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's our queer headlines for today, so let's catch up on the LGBTQ news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment we call Quarantine Quickies. Tonight, we report the devastating effect coronavirus has had on the American and worldwide LGBTQ community. We report tonight that the American LGBTQ community now has 1.8 million LGBTQ COVID confirmed cases, and more than 32,000 LGBTQ Americans have now died. So let's queer up Quarantine Quickies. Vaccine is coming to the gayest place on planet Earth next week. We are also in an arms race now. There are signs of hope in the U.S. amid the coronavirus pandemic, with more COVID-19 vaccines being approved for emergency use authorization by government regulators, and the number of vaccinations surpassing the number of total confirmed cases in this country. At the same time, a new challenge has risen. Mutant variant strains of the virus have begun popping up around the globe, most notably Brazil, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Dr. Summer Johnson, Dean of Health Sciences at the University of New Haven, said today, quote, "We're in an arms race now against the virus to see, can we get people vaccinated quickly enough before these new, more contagious, more transmissible strains really take hold and become the dominant strains," end quote. The White House has announced that 6,500 pharmacies will distribute vaccine starting next week and expect 1 million doses a day to be distributed in America's pharmacies daily by March. This new approach will directly affect LGBTQ neighborhoods. For example, in our home of Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, vaccine pharmacy distribution will begin in both CVS and public supermarkets.
Wait a minute, Publix, huh? Weren't we upset about Miss Alex Jones and her association with Publix and the Trump rally? I guess that was cleaned up nicely. Good job, PR team. All right, Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
You know, it is alarming with how this virus is mutating. I still haven't received the vaccine, and yeah, I don't even know if I still want it.
Ooh, all right. Well, vaccine distribution in all of the reporting that we've done at Queer News Tonight is going to ramp up very quickly. There's 30-some million already out, and the CDC and Dr. Fauci especially predicts that by the middle of March it will be a dramatic expansion. Billions of doses have now been ordered, so we're going to see a change in vaccination come pretty quickly. That is our COVID-19 news for tonight. Next, we report that Happening Out Television Network helps support our LGBTQ community. An example is Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set in supporting that partnership. The network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the entire world, with more than 30,000 watching every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and it's totally live. We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Victor Diaz-Herman, Chief Executive Officer of Pride Lines, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale for making this set in this amazing queer church campus possible.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and your host and guests stay at this LGBTQ alley partner. We encourage you to stay here when visiting South Florida.
Well, next up, we're going to queer up South Florida gay news. Local LGBTQ media brings the LGBTQ community story. Our hometown South Florida gay news outlet brings the news important to our community.
This includes news about the memorial for LGBTQ Mayor Justin Flippin. South Florida Gay News reports that despite objections to its design, a plan to honor former Mayor Justin Flippin, who died suddenly in January 2020, was approved by Wilton Manor's commissioners this week. Commissioners unanimously approved the purchase of a memorial marker to honor the late mayor. Signorama Fort Lauderdale was awarded a $10,815 contract for the memorial marker. It will be placed at Flippin Park, formerly known as JC Park, at the intersection of Wilton Drive and Northeast 21st Court. Flippin frequently appeared on Happening Out television shows. South Florida Gay News also reports tonight that one of America's largest and most important LGBTQ choral groups is looking for a new artistic director. For more than a decade, the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida has served our community through song, and now the search is on for a new leader. Artistic director Harold Dioquino has decided to leave after the season of shows, proving that the GMCSF is an artistically special place to work. Executive Director Mark Kent said dozens of people applied the last time this job was open. Kent said, quote, "Those who applied the first time stated they were interested because of the impressive quality and growth of our chorus, the great location of South Florida, and the vibrant LGBTQ plus community," end quote.
I'm a former member of the chorus, and Queer News Tonight congratulates Harold D'Aquino for his amazing accomplishments for our community and wishes the entire Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida every success. Next up, Queer News Tonight is proud to support our local LGBTQ businesses and organizations here in South Florida. And tonight, we are pleased to feature South Florida Gay News. South Florida Gay News is a go-to publication for local, national, and international LGBTQ content. Starting off as a local gay newspaper called The Express, with its first issue on January 25th, 2010, and evolving into what is now South Florida Gay News. Tonight, to tell us more about SFGN and their rich history, is their executive editor, Jason Parsley. Jason, welcome to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you.
Well, we are always excited to promote the idea, especially print media. We're in a digital format, different principally than South Florida Gay News. Tell us about South Florida Gay News' mission in South Florida. What do you do and why?
Well, we are a local LGBTQ newspaper covering all the local LGBT news. We also have supplement that covers Wilton Manors, which is our local neighborhood. And we have a bi-monthly magazine called The Mirror. And so that's really what we do. We cover the news.
We just gave a couple of samples. You're reporting today on the tribute monument for our former mayor who died suddenly in January of last year, and also the new search for one of the largest LGBT choruses in the country. We've noticed, and we follow print media very closely because we obviously we are big proponents of LGBT news, and there's some anchors around the country, the Blade in Washington, in Atlanta, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and in South Florida. The South Florida Gay News is our anchor media. Why do you think your type of media is so vitally important for the LGBTQ community? Why should people follow SFGN? I do, but why should everyone else?
I think print media is vital to the landscape, really. You know, I think LGBT news has become so mainstream over the years, and that was fine. But what's happened is that you see all these cutbacks in media landscape, from like Steve Rothaus, the Miami Herald, he's no longer there. They're not replacing that position. There will be no LGBT issues reporter. So with all these cutbacks, one of the first things to go is going to be LGBT news. So it's just so important to support your local LGBT newspaper wherever you may live. And, so that's why it's vital to support this.
I'm constantly asked, because we're in a digital platform in reporting daily news, I'm constantly asked about the sourcing of information that we report on. And I'm constantly saying, well, you don't hear it from MSNBC because MSNBC doesn't report frequently LGBT content unless it's absolutely national or international news. Outlets like South Florida Gay News, The Mirror, which you just talked about, the Washington Blade. We had an editor last week with the inauguration and the January 6th riots going on in the Capitol. The LGBT story came from the Washington Blade, not from traditional straight print or digital. Your commitment here in South Florida, you report national and international, but your commitment is principally to be able to keep track of what's happening in the local environment. 3 counties here in South Florida, for people around the country that are listening to you. South Florida Gay News is really the expert of what happens in our local community. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. We need to be here because we need to tell our own stories. It's great that the mainstream media wants to jump in and tell our stories from time to time, but we are here every single week telling your stories, telling our stories as a community.
Jason, I always worry because of being, I'm a news junkie, and being a news junkie, I'm worried about the LGBTQ community's attention on our own news. As we begin to be accepted in the degrees that we're being accepted, we are also morphing into the broader community. Do you see a continued need in the future for our stories and our news and the issues that face the LGBTQ community?
Absolutely. After President Obama, we thought we had it all. We had 8 years of tremendous success. Absolutely. And then we went way backwards. So we have to be ever vigilant and know that just because we get one right today, it can be taken away tomorrow. Yeah. Especially when so many of our rights have been granted to us through the courts. Yeah. And so these are not legislative rights. And again, we've seen in other countries, like in Eastern Europe especially, where the LGBT community was making big strides, and one bad leader can erase it in just a moment.
Yeah, it's the soundbite of our interview here. Queer News Tonight is very passionate about delivering the news about the LGBTQ community. You see it in this broadcast. It can come through digital broadcasting and the network at Happening Out Television. We do talk and all kinds of various different things, including the daily news. But our very vital, important media is our print LGBTQ media. And it gives us an opportunity to introduce you to South Florida Gay News and to Jason Parsley. There are organizations like it around the country. So if you're hearing us in different locations, you need to pick up and look at the news that is coming to you from your local affiliates, because they're telling the story. And in fact, they're the only ones that are telling the story of our community. Jason, what's next for South Florida Gay News? We begin February. What's 2021 going to be like for you?
Well, one of our big changes last year when the pandemic hit is that we really, we are a weekly newspaper. We come out every Thursday on the stands. But one thing that we changed last year is that our distribution was took a big hit because so many businesses closed down. So we really started thinking digital first, and so most of our stories go online first before it even hits the newspaper and the stands. Mm-hmm. And obviously we'll see a lot more of that. I mentioned Steve Rothaus from the Miami Herald. He's now a regular contributor to our newspaper, so
excellent.
we're super happy with that, super excited with that partnership and relationship. And really just, you know, news happens every single day, and we're going to be here and we're going to be covering it.
So Jason, I was like stalking, or I was doing research, whichever one you want to say. I think it was more stalking, right? So I was all up in your Pinterest, right? So you had a lot of guys kissing. You had a lot of Adam Lambert. I love him in Queen now. Love it, love it. And a lot of freaking pizza. So is that like an addiction, or is that like a love thing, or is that something that I just don't know
Jason,
about?
Spill.
Well, I do love Adam Lambert and I do love pizza. Pinterest was a short-lived experiment at SFGN. We just kind of dipped our feet into it and we kind of let it go, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
Thank you for your 10 years at SFGN. That's very
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. And one of for viewers, if you're here in South Florida, you already know, and around the country, they have a must read section of the best of South Florida, and it's kind of gossipy, but it's very valuable in terms of the best drag queen, the best restaurant, the best places to make out. And no, I'm only kidding. But it's really a good segment that they do every fall, and it's called the Best of South Florida. We encourage you to pick up South Florida Gay News, and it is a great partner for us. One of the reasons we were happy to do the two stories that we did tonight from South Florida Gay News. And Jason, we thank you very much for illustrating the importance of LGBTQ print and news in a local community. And thank you for being with Queer News tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and Faye,
So that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by like and subscribing, ring the bell for updates, share this news. We are the only television live video news that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson. And on behalf of anchors Faye What and John Buckley, we are going to see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, American.